Good day. Today is Tuesday, 8th of July, 2025, and today we sent out our weekly mail shot. And in today's mail shot, we had the spotlighted the TQ Leadership Toolkit. It had the TQ Leadership Report, TQ Recruitment, Role Sync, and Lecture Series all bundled up in a single offering. You can find it on our website right now. The mailing list subscribers get a 25% off offer at the start. So if you wish to be part of those offers, feel free to subscribe to our mailing list. And you can do that by going to tq.com and finding the small button like at the right portion of the screen with our logo on it. And you just fill in your details and tick all boxes essentially. And then we'll send you emails with our weekly schedule. So next is today we're going to continue our series on the webinar that Professor Petridis did back during COVID, like during COVID lockdowns. And in this segment, he will be discussing the direct effects and impact of COVID, as well as the psychological impacts that people have faced. So the psychological, interpersonal impacts, and the potential consequences of COVID. It is quite an interesting watch this, to see his thoughts on this in retrospective, because one of the key things that he said is that the fundamental rules of engagement between people do not really change, and that is quite true if you see how the pandemic played out and developed despite these crazy times that we had back then. The fundamental rules of engagement did not change despite everyone really trying to change them. And it's quite interesting and fascinating to see his predictions come out in effect. And he mentioned some of the main winners, some of the main losers, and the potential ways to thrive in this sort of crisis environment. So this is quite a good callback once again to the new crisis of today, which is artificial intelligence. So despite the fact that artificial intelligence is present and constantly growing and becoming stronger and stronger, the fundamental rules of engagement for people do not really change. So you should center yourself around that and enjoy his comments on it. I hope to see you tomorrow once again, and have a great day.
That brings us now to the COVID part of the presentation. And while I'm no medical expert in this disease, I have leading expertise in dealing with its psychological consequences. And I can certainly tell you that many people are interpreting this ordeal as fierce grace and see in it opportunities for growth. So there's no doubt in my mind that many will emerge from this much stronger than before, both psychologically and externally in the world. They will take advantage of this crisis in order to become stronger, in order to strengthen themselves, in order to become more secure, more effective, psychologically and in terms of their behavior. Now, irrespective of its origins and how quickly it will be resolved, which is still very unclear, COVID-19 or the responses to COVID-19, and I'm not really exploring today if the cure is worse than the disease, like many have argued, but irrespective of origins and how quickly it will be resolved, this crisis has shaken up the world in the space of a few short months. And you can see here some big changes in the way in which we greet ourselves, with the Eastern alternative, of course, being far more graceful, I think, compared to some of the novelties that are being proposed over here in the West, as is so often the case. And there have been many social as well as personal impacts that we are witnessing across the world. You know, social impacts are, for example, I've listed them in this slide, like office-based work is very severely affected. There is extensive evidence, incidents, examples of ageism in our society. There's social segregation, the Black Lives Matter movement that was born in the midst of this crisis. There's also been personal impacts, like, for example, the psychological shock of lockdown, which is particularly pronounced in Western liberal democracies, because all of a sudden now people in these democracies are finding out that the state has the ability to shut down your business, separate you from your relatives, lock you inside your home, abolish your right to religious worship, and more. So that's been a particular shock for people in Western liberal democracies. And of course, there are changes in relationships and relationship breakdowns, changes of risk perception, and so on and so forth. Now, the important thing that I would like to note from the perspective of this particular webinar is that COVID is not the cause of all these effects. It is the catalyst. So take, for example, relationship breakdowns, which I mentioned as a possible personal impact of this crisis. Now, there is no way that a solid relationship would break down because of COVID. This is simply not possible. However, relationships that are psychologically illegitimate, of which there are many, can suffer greatly from this disruption. And the same for businesses. A business that has become complacent, a business that has become undiversified, undirected, poorly led, will be exposed to severe shocks and may never recover. But COVID here is the catalyst for this. It is not the cause of the failure. Unfortunately, it's a very convenient scapegoat, and a lot of people who will be failing during this crisis will be turning to COVID and blaming it all on the disease, when in fact the causes of failure, the causes of the problems are far, far deeper. Moving into the post-COVID future, there's many possible negative, untoward social developments that we could see in a post-COVID future, post-crisis future. We could see, and to some extent we're already experiencing, restrictions on international travel, electronic digital surveillance, the denigration of the human being as some kind of biohazard, and many others may follow depending on how the whole situation develops. The important thing, again, that I would like to note for our purposes here is that the fundamental laws and facts of life will not be affected by this crisis. The perennial laws under which life unfolds will not be in the least affected by this turmoil. Life is not random. It unfolds according to certain laws and principles, and it is incumbent on us to discover and apply these laws in our life. Discovering these laws under which life operates is not simply a possibility, it is a responsibility for us. So we need to withdraw our attention, and attention, I should say here, attention is a vital resource. Attention is the vital resource today, not information. Attention is in short supply, not information. We are drowning in information, but our attention is our competitive advantage. Our attention is in very short, very limited supply. So we need to withdraw it from wherever it is that it is currently dissipated, for example, in so-called news programs or mindless entertainment, and we need to redirect it with laser-like precision to the investigation, discovery, and application of the laws governing the mind and the laws governing life.